So there was pretty dramatic news this week when Stephen Mooney changed his plea pretty much at the last minute, though I think this was flagged up in advance, where he admitted murdering his wife in Dublin in 2023. So tell us, I mean, it's clear we get told exactly what had happened, but he was obviously in a position where that not guilty plea just wasn't going to be able to be defended.
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't really seen this particular course of events before in the courts. Like, I suppose it's something that you might see on TV, but essentially Stephen Mooney had gone before the courts accused of murdering his wife, Anna Mooney. She was found with stab wounds in the kitchen of her home on Kilbarrack Road in Raheny in June 2023. And he was charged very quickly, so hasn't been out in the media too much. And then he was due to go on trial early in February, so just a few weeks ago. And on the day he was due to start his trial, it was heard that basically there was a significant development. And this was basically that gardaí were able to unlock his phone. So they were able to use this technology called Cellbrite, which up until that point, they had access to his phone from the time of his arrest, but they hadn't been able to get into it essentially.
Yeah.
So with this in mind, then the case was adjourned. And then this week, so on Monday, when he was actually due to start his trial again, it was heard that he was going to put in a guilty plea. And we heard on Monday that essentially video evidence, audio and video evidence detailing the time coming up to the incident and the incident itself was on his phone. So with that in mind, then it was adjourned and he put in his guilty plea.
Yeah, so what happens when phones are seized by the gardaí? Obviously the normal, most people have a 6-digit password on their phone, or 4-digit. Most people probably have 6 digits these days. I think most phones demand that. So people think that like it's not going to keep out the police, but it's actually quite an advanced. You need to have quite advanced technology to get through it. Yeah. There's obviously, with a 6-digit password, there's hundreds of thousands, probably up to 1 million, I suppose, possibilities for combinations.
Yeah. So
when it does come to court, sometimes you can hear criminals and their defence barrister will actually bring it up that we handed over his password to gardaí, therefore saving them time, because I think they could eventually get through it.
Yeah.
But it can take an awful lot of time. And in this occasion, they're talking about this Cellbrite, which it's an Israeli company, I think.
Yeah.
And it's used all across the world.
Yeah.
You know, they seem to have had some upgrade that speeds that process up.
Yeah, basically because as guards had seized his phone at the crime scene, which was coming up to 2 years ago, and you know this Cellbrite technology had undergone an upgrade which allowed them to unlock the phone without a password, essentially. And when they unlocked Mooney's phone, it was heard in court how basically it became apparent that it contained highly relevant video and audio of the minutes leading up to the fatal incident and the fatal incident itself. So, you know, we assume that means that evidence of what happened to what he did to Anna Mooney was there, and you know there's no getting around that. So then the case was adjourned. This was in February, and it came back this week where his defence barrister said he was going to enter a guilty plea.
Now, people sometimes during arguments record each other. I mean, it wouldn't be unheard of.
Yeah.
Most people, what they believe is if they have it on their phone, they record something, and if it's deleted, then it's gone. Like that isn't the case simply. So even if you were to record something and then delete it, it remains in the digital memory. All you delete is a pointer to it, in effect. Now, if as you start recording new stuff, it can actually get deleted through that process. But people always think deleting it means it's gone. It's simply not.
No.
Now, he called the police himself, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
That's were the reports at the time. To tell them something had happened with his wife. Now we're only speculating what would happen, but the fact that that on his phone was found a recording, maybe that's connected with it. I mean, Stephen Mooney and Anna. Do we have the pronunciation of her surname? So we apologise in advance.
I apologise
for not getting the Ukrainian pronunciation.
Yeah, well, I would apologise in advance, but I would describe it as Anna Shupakova.
Yeah.
You know, she's obviously came from we believe she came from Ukraine within the last 20 years. And, she had a lot of family members here. We saw that on her death notice. She had children here, and I think she had her mother here as well. Her mother was still alive at the time of her death. So, that was her maiden name, but obviously she was gone by the name Moody.
Now, obviously when the death occurred, there was a lot of people. She was being described as Ukrainian. People presumed that she had come over due to the conflict in the Ukraine in the last while.
Yeah,
but we don't. That's not the case. She's been here for a couple of decades, very embedded in the community.
Yeah,
and that couple are together. Most of the time she's been here, if not all of the time.
Yeah,
Stephen Mooney, not. Absolutely not somebody who would be known in connection with criminality.
No.
A sort of respectable businessman.
Yeah.
Running a business in the local area. People would have known him quite well, I think. He would have been, I think, lived in different parts of North Dublin, but certainly not somebody that's connected with that sort of behavior,
No, and you deduce as well that it was because it was described in the death notice. Anna was described as the beloved wife of Stephen, and then missed by her other family members. So, and even we were out in the locality after the death, and people were just talking about their shock, how they would see them walking up and down the street, and there didn't seem to be any suggestion of anything untoward, or that he was involved in anything that you wouldn't you would think of him as a bad guy. So it seemed to have come to a shock to people who knew him anyway in the area.
Yeah, but of course, just because somebody is a businessman or a middle class professional, it doesn't mean that you know what's going on inside somebody's home.
No, this just shows. Yeah,
and a lot of these tragic deaths are domestic incidents like this. So if we're looking at there are a lot of murders in the home. It's tragic to say.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, sure. I was only just looking this morning, and Aisling Murphy, obviously she was killed by a stranger while she was out for a jog, but there is a woman running a half marathon in New York, and the fundraising for that is going to go to half towards Aisling Murphy, but also the other half towards Nadine Lott, who was obviously murdered by her former partner as well. So it's just it's everywhere. A lot domestic. We have so many domestic abuse cases that unfortunately these women have become sort of so well known in the public for the wrong reasons. So it is very common.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of the times that we are seeing women, being murdered, it is usually somebody known to them. So this is just another example of that, and it is very sad, obviously.
Very tragic. And of course, he automatically, Stephen Mooney is given because he's pled guilty to murder, he automatically gets a life sentence. That's not up for debate.
No.
But he will come back for a formal sentence anyway.
Yeah.
And he will then, I suppose, there will be a victim impact statement, I presume, from some family member, and you might hear some mitigation on his behalf. Did they give a date for when he's returning to court?
Yeah, June 18th, which is actually a few months away, but I guess it's because this was a plea was given in. It was obviously a U-turn, a trial was due to take place. So it's a couple of months, and I did mention in court that they wanted to give the family time to prepare statements, because obviously, they have to gather their thoughts around the fact that they've lost their mother, and now her husband has admitted to her murder, so they'll be given time to get that ready, and then obviously there will be pleas of mitigation, I'd imagine. So we'll hear all that, and I guess there hasn't been too much, because obviously he was before the courts, which is limits what you can say, and then obviously the copy this week was quite limited because it was just a plea, and it probably wasn't known that this was going to happen. So we probably will get a bigger picture, about exactly the course of events, and then obviously hopefully we'll hear, if the family want to say anything about Anna.
Yeah, but a very tragic case, and we'll return to it when we get to that sentencing point.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Niall.
Thanks, Eimear. Robbie Lawler was out of control.
This is Double Cross, the murder of Robbie Lawler.
It was going to be an all-out war with him in the middle of it.
A Crime World special investigation podcast based on my new book, Web of Betrayal, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe.
Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.